Hi, ever wonder what it's like to work another profession or live in the underworld? Listen to unsuspecting riders give a 10 to 15 minute personal masterclass as I spontaneously interview them as they enter my taxi. I'm your host, Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. I would say this lady is very beautiful, but I can only see her eyes like one of those Arab women. But she's on the show and she's a social worker, and she's going to tell us about the ins and outs of being a social worker, what got her into industry, what motivates her, and how a typical day is. So nice to have you here today, Sally.
Thank you very much. What do you want me to start with? Why I became a social worker,
Yes,
I suppose?
Why did you become a social worker?
Okay, I became a social worker because I was a teenage mother, and although I was a teenage mother, I did all that I can to ensure that my daughter had the best in life. But my number one thing is that I had a lot of support. So I lived with my grandma for various reasons, with my upbringing and my own parents, and it wasn't into care or anything like that. It was like what you might call a private arrangement. So I lived with my grandmother, and I got a lot of support from my daughter's dad as well as from my side of the family, and it just made me think that if I didn't have that support, I could have been a person who had social services involved in their life, etc. So I always want to help people. I saw my grandma helping people. She was always childminding the neighbour's child because they had to go to school, and I just like to help people.
That's good. So tell me, obviously you made that decision from a young age, What was the road you took to becoming a social worker?
I kind of didn't make it from a young age, so to speak. What happened is that my aunt had a youth club type summer program that we used to help out at, like as the older teenage kids, we used to help out at the summer program and stuff like that. So I had that experience in working with children, and then I worked on the trains.
Okay.
And I used to be I don't know if you'd call it a ticket collector, because I didn't take tickets, but I sold tickets whilst the train was moving.
Okay, so you walk up and down.
Yeah,
Tickets, please.
yeah, basically, yeah. Exactly. And there was all sorts of people on there, people on the wrong train, drunks that have fallen asleep, people that you could see had mental health, etc. And from then, I got made redundant from that job, and then I went to...
They make people redundant?
Well, I was made redundant.
Ooh, what did you do? Maybe because the Oyster... You're before the Oyster Card?
Before the Oyster Card, way before the Oyster Card. This was, way before the Oyster Card. And it was for a private company. It wasn't for TfL or London Transport. I think it was back in the day. It wasn't for none of that. It was literally for a private company.
So have you got your payout?
Yes, and I'm still enrolled in my railway pension. Even though I was young, there were certain things that my grandma taught me about, like thinking about my future and retirement, etc. So I made sure that when I stuck to that company, because it was the railways, I was like, yep, I'm going to subscribe to the railway pension to make sure that whatever age I retire at, I could still have a healthy pension. Back then, the pensions were quite nice. So I made sure I did that. And then I applied for a job as a youth worker. And I got this job, and while I was there, I used to work alongside social workers that I used to cuss and tell off all the time of how useless they were. And I was just like, I need to go and do my social work degree, because these people here do not know what they're doing. And
so you generally didn't think that they knew what they're doing?
Yeah, I didn't think they knew what they were doing.
What was it that they were doing wrong that you felt that you could do better?
Poor communication with the young people.
Was that based on their background, or...?
No, they just wouldn't communicate with the young person. It's like they saw them once every 4 weeks. The young person, they would put their young person in a property. Not at this time I worked with what you call the leaving care service, which worked with 16 to 25-year-olds. And what they would do is they would place them in accommodation, not set up their electric, their bills for them, you know, and then when they reached 18, there was no one to guide them from. So when they were under 18, their money came from leaving care, which was a bit more money than what you got from the state. And when they reached 18, they had to then apply for state benefits. And there was nothing to prepare them from the drop of money and the responsibility from the leaving care office then back to the state. And so you'd find a lot of them were in rent arrears, getting evicted, in the home, and the flat is cold, hardly any furniture, etc. So
they've got babies or
exactly,
prostitution, all those things start to come about.
Exactly, it makes it even worse. You'd get somewhere, you know, for whatever reason they've entered into bad relationships. So my niche was teenage mums.
Yep.
So they would enter into bad relationships, and next minute, you know, social worker comes on board and they threatening to take their kids away from them.
Yeah.
But nobody's really prepared them for life.
Yeah, pressure. They start to do drastic things.
Exactly.
Hide what's really going on.
Exactly. And then they're still young, so they still have things like peer pressure. So you could get young mums that are holding things for their boyfriends or holding things for their friends because they're the one who's got the flat, and then the flat gets raided, and then that puts them in jeopardy. So there was just loads of things that I just felt that the social services was not assisting them with.
Would you say that some of these people who weren't assisting were just saw it as a job? They didn't really have a heart in it, like a teacher who's done it too long.
Definitely. I think that some social work, I think the cost of living back then, I think, was a lot better than now. I think everything has just gone up. So even if you earn, say, over £35,000 a year, you still might struggle because the cost of living has gone up. Rents are higher, you know, going to the supermarket, the cost of one basket is about £40 now, whereas before it could have been about £20. So everything to me has gone up. So I do get that, you know, sometimes I believe that back then that some people were just in it because they were comfortable or this was their regular wage. I don't think that their hearts were in it. I think if their hearts were in it, they would have done more.
Interesting. I see you have a thing. So what do you do that's different then now?
What do I do that's different? I honestly believe I go above and beyond. I mean, I could be in the office in my borough that I worked in previously. I could be in the office till 1 a.m. in the morning just trying to make sure that I've done all that I can, or, you know, ensuring that I actually take a young person to their new placement, so that it's not that they just turn up randomly and they don't know anybody there and no one's to settle them. And I will stay until they feel settled. If it takes 3 or 4 hours, it's going to take 3 or 4 hours, but I make sure that that young person is settled and that they don't feel like they've just been abandoned. Because if they've been ripped from their families or taken from their families or just a different way of life, and then all of a sudden you're just going to leave them in a placement that they don't know anybody, it can be very daunting for them. Is there a presentation or something that they're given when they're doing that, moving into a new flat? That's what I'm thinking. When I was in the military, a lot of things was presentation, talk it through, and we can ask questions and blah, blah, blah. And do you see what I mean? No. Maybe suggestion may also make your life easier, because it's kind of like it's a tick box, but it's also a interaction thing. Yeah, but sometimes with a child, if they've been removed so many times, sometimes they know the drill, because they've had so many different placements for whatever reason. It could be placement breakdown, it could be that the family decide that they can no longer take on that young person or child anymore, and for them it's almost like a repetition, like they already know what to expect, they already know what's going to happen. Okay, but I was more referring to the point where they're coming into a new home, as in... Oh, like a starter pack? Yeah, starter. Have you ever tried to get a young person to read it? No, but it's not you handing them it. Okay. It's like a PowerPoint. You say, come on, this is how it is, and you can put some flair on it. So you can say, listen, you don't want to be doing this. This is why you don't want to be doing this. Do you see what I mean? You really want to try and be working. You will get yourself on some apprenticeship thing, because otherwise, if you just wait on the money, then you're not going to be bettering yourself and blah, blah, blah. Do you see what I mean? And you want those garments
you want the latest bling or whatever they're into. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do get what you're
Break it down
saying.
like that. You can even do it as a YouTube video. Get some of the older ones who used to be who are more focused, and get them to talk about how they did it, and then make that an official video and just say bam, and then you can talk to any questions, and you tell your story a bit, some relation. There you are.
Definitely, a lot of boroughs actually do that, but I find that those presentations more run when it's like Carers Week or something like that, rather than it's something that they can always access. And they do have groups for people that are former looked after children that come back, and they deliver stuff to the children that are currently looked after. But when it's younger children, I find that care and attention is just solely the social worker has to do it. It's relied upon the social worker. I find that it's more 16 plus that get that interaction with former care leavers that can have that rapport with them, but not. I find that it's very few with children.
I hear you. Okay. So did you do a degree?
Yes, I did a degree in social work, because you have to be registered with it's called Socialworker England now. You have to be registered with them in order to practice as a social worker. And you have to make sure that you keep up with your regular registration. So they will ask you questions like what kind of training you did that year, how it impacted your work, and how you did direct work with children and families using that whatever training that you've gone on.
Okay. The police, up until recently, if you wanted to be a policeman in London, you had to have come from London for different reasons. Is there anything like that with social workers?
No. I always think it helps to not work in the borough that you live in. For various reasons, especially if you're doing a certain type of social work. So I deal with child protection, so I would never work in the borough that I live in, because it's not nice bumping into a parent in the supermarket when you've just
took a child.
Yeah.
So she's a bad mum. You're a bad mum, woman. Give it. No, you can't have it.
Yes. I kind of, yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense. In that respect.
Yeah, but
what if you were speaking to somebody who was going into the social work game, a young person, what would be your advice to them?
I would say that I'm not saying that you can't be a good social worker if you're just fresh out of uni without any experience, but I think that some kind of different, not just life experience, but different care experience. So it could be that, like I was saying, that I did volunteer at a youth club, or being a teacher's assistant, and then maybe working in a school as like safeguarding officer, and trying to, I think that those kind of things help, because it helps to prepare you for what you are about to deal with. Because although you might hear about horrible stories in the news, etc., it never really prepares you for when you actually have to work a case like that and deal with a case like that. And unfortunately, if you do child protection, you can't avoid or run from the cases that are the most horrific.
Yeah, I understand that, because parent abuse of children is not something I'll probably end up in jail. If I was if I was a policeman and I came across certain things, or even nurse, I was talking to a nurse, a paramedic, I don't know, and the culprit's there, you probably wouldn't be the most professional, to put it nicely.
Yeah.
On a good day, or probably on a bad day, but either way.
Yeah. And what I would also say is that what you learn at uni, in terms of the class aspect of it, so your lectures, etc., will never really prepare you for what you actually deal with when you're on placement, or when you're actually doing the job.
So it's like driving. Learning to drive is just about safety. It's not really about getting where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Got 2 more questions as we're running down. What have you learned that you wish you knew when you had started in the industry?
I have learnt, oh gosh, I've learnt so much. I've learnt more about myself and how I communicate. And that, you know, sometimes because I'm quite handsy when I talk. So I talk with my hands and, you know, my facial expressions. I don't have a good poker face. So I've learnt to try and control that where best that I can. Meaning that, you know, sometimes parents will lie to you, people will lie to you, and you know, one of my pet hates is being lied to. So I've had to learn to be able to control my facial expressions, because they're not lying to me because, you know, they're my friend is lying to me. They're lying to me because maybe they think they're going to be in trouble or something like that. So I've learnt more about myself, how I deal with things, what I can endure, what I can take, you know, when to reach out for support, when to reach out for help, and that it's okay as a professional to say that you cannot cope with your current caseload or what is going on, or you cannot handle this case, and push it back on your manager and say, look, you need to actually help me or support me or take a caseload off of me because it's just too much.
So knowing your limits.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question is, what's the impact you want to have on the world? You seem like a woman with a good heart.
Yeah, I think the impact, I just want to, I want the people that I work with to know that the start of your life does not mean that's going to be your end journey. And that, you know, if I can help somebody to realise that and realise that they can work as hard as they can to their full potential, and that I am just a human being. So realistically, the work that they've done is what they've done, and they should be appreciated for the work that they've done in order to get to where they've got to.
It's good. I've heard 330 reasons to that question, and I haven't heard it like that. So I will say well done.
Thank you.
That is very good. We wish you well on your path, your journey to helping people. Do you see yourself doing this for life?
No.
No,
I see myself moving into different aspects of social work, but to actually say frontline, because right now I'm frontline. When it was the snow and stuff like that, I was really thinking, oh my gosh, I was walking up icy hills, I was doing visits and I was just like, no, I couldn't. Because there's going to be a time where my body, although my spirit might be young, my body's going to conk out on me. It's just not going to happen. No.
Talking about that, have you ever had physical abuse?
I've had a chair thrown at me.
Okay.
I've had threats.
Is that children or mum?
No, my parents. Parents. Children will throw stuff. I've had children throw stuff as well, but yeah, parents.
So you need to have patience, zero tolerance, patience and understanding.
Do you know what it is as well? This is why I said that you need to know yourself, because that person could throw a chair at you, and come Monday, you still have to phone that parent up, or you still have to work back with that parent to explain something that may have happened to them. Don't assume that because that has happened to you, that your manager's going to take that case off of you straight away. There might be not anybody to give that case to, so you might be stuck with it.
Also, I heard on a man, old rabbi on YouTube one time, and he said his father never got angry. He said his father used to say, if what that man did was so stupid, if he knew what I knew, he would have never have done that.
Okay.
I feel sorry for him, pity and empathy. And he said, by taking that understanding, it's very, very hard to be angry or malicious with people if you pity them, because you can't pity and be angry at people at the same time. Because if you pity someone, and I'm not talking about empathy, I'm talking about pity, it's because you can see they're in a predicament that they just don't know better, or they can't help themselves. Do you understand? And
yeah.
I try and take that on. I'm not perfect, to say the least, but I try to take that on. And where I take that on is where, you know, the decision-making part of the brain doesn't fully develop until the age of 25.
I didn't know that.
Yes, so when these kids are doing stupid things, Like my son now, when I found that out, I looked at my son, I thought about my son, I thought, now I understand. Now I understand. And dealing with my daughter is so much easier. You can't help it. You're not even fully developed, are you? And I tell them that my daughter doesn't appreciate it.
I could probably see why.
It's a biological fact, and I just say to her, baby girl, we've all been through it. We've all been through it, so it's nothing, you know. So. But anyway, thanks. We've come to the end of our journey. It's been great talking to you, Sally, and we look forward to taking you somewhere again. We hope you liked that interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to get the latest daily episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economy and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources? Then listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you will hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m.